Be upstanding for the chairman.
I would like to invite Rabbi Irit Shilar to lead the reflection.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm the rabbi of the Harlow Jewish community, but we have at least half our members from East Harts. So thank you for inviting me to speak to you. We read in the first book of Kings in chapter 12, then King Rehoboam consulted the elders who had served his father Solomon during his lifetime. How would you advise me to answer these people, he asked. They asked him to become king. They replied, if today you will be a servant to these people and serve them and give them a favorite answer, they will always be your servants. The Midrash teaches us that he who is appointed leader over the community becomes the servant of the community. And a Hasidic source adds, if God has granted you the privilege of being leader of a community, should you need to rebuke your community, do not rebuke them with an angry heart, but with a soft tongue. For every community is a holy congregation, blessed of God. Let every person be important in your eyes and not inconsequential, for you cannot know who is worthy and who is unworthy. God looks into the very heart. Thank you.
Thank you. You may sit. Thank you, Rabbi Irit Shilar. You can, if you want to, you can go home and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you for coming. Thank you. You've probably noticed that we're using a different faith leader for every council meeting, and I'm hoping to continue this, that we have different faith leaders for the rest of my civic year. I'd like to welcome us, members of the public and those watching the meeting on YouTube. Can I please remind members to speak into the microphone so that it can be heard on the webcast? Please note that I'd like to change the order of the agenda very slightly tonight. So we're going to bring the 3, 4, 5 and 6 forward so that we can hear the petition as early as we possibly can. Then we're going to go back to item 1, chairman's announcements, and item 2, leader's announcement, after we've heard the petition. So the first item is apologies for absence.
We have received apologies for absence from Councillor Andrews, Councillor Frecknell, Councillor Hollybon, Councillor Huggins, Councillor McMullen and Councillor Ward-Booth.
Thank you. The next item is the minutes of the last meeting, which was way back on the 27th of July. We have the minutes from the meeting held on the 27th of July in front of us. Are there any amendments to these minutes? No, in that case, can I have a proposer, please?
Happy to propose, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hazy. And a seconder, please. Councillor Kay.
Yes, happy to second those members.
Thank you. Members, the minutes have been proposed and seconded. Can we have a show of hands for these minutes, please? Thank you. Is there anybody against? And any abstentions? No, I think that's unanimous. That is carried. Thank you. Next item is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest, please? Councillor Hazy.
Yes, I'd like to declare an interest for agenda item 9C, the SPD for Old River Lane. I sit on the board, the livery board for this council, and I will not be taking part in the discussion, and I will not be voting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Buckmaster.
Thank you. Same item 9C for the same reason, and I won't be taking part and I'll be abstaining. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the same applies to me as I'm also a member of the Old River Lane Delivery Board. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Item 11, I'd like to declare I'm a member of Bishop Stortford Town Council and was also on the working party that came up with the idea of the private members bill. So I will be abstaining and not taking part.
Thank you. Councillor Snowden, please.
Thank you. On the SPD agenda item, I will not be speaking, taking part or voting as I'm a member of the delivery board. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Snowden. Yes, councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Chairman. I also would declare that as a member of Bishop Stortford Town Council, I would have potentially a conflict of interest there, so I won't participate.
Okay, thank you. Right, well, I think we can move on to the next item, which is the petition. I'd like to invite Veronica Fraser up if you'd like to take the seat of the public speaker seat. And before you start, I just want to read some text out for the Bengio councillors. I have to advise local ward members that the Constitution of East Hart says that a ward member can, if they so wish, speak to a petition presented to the council, not that they must do so. All 3 Bengio ward members sit on the Development Management Committee and have, I understand, chosen to remain neutral on the merits or otherwise of this petition, so as not to predetermine any application that may go before DMC in the future. If one of the 3 members feels strongly enough that they do want to speak out in favour or against this petition, then of course they can do so, but they would need to bear in mind that doing so would more than likely mean that they could not then sit on the Development Management Committee if and when a matter relating to this petition came forward for determination at a later date. Thank you. Veronica, as soon as you press your button, the time will start counting and you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you. Can I just
Thank
check
you.
that this is clear? I'm going
Yeah.
in the right place. Okay, off we go then. Thank.
Oh, sorry, can you?
Right, start again.
My-
Okay, as a Bengio resident, I'm speaking against proposals to build 100 new houses on Bengio Field. Further housing here would impact badly on all existing infrastructure, on roads, drainage, health services and schools. It would also reflect badly, I think, on the District Council's reputation as a local authority claiming it's concerned about the environment and sustainability and conflict with your policies against increased development on the fringes of existing housing boundaries. The Bengio Neighbourhood Plan also has policies on protecting natural areas, enhancing biodiversity, and only allowing development that respects the character, integrity, and amenities in the local landscape, and that protects local views. Most of the protections in this plan are associated with the Bengio Field. Development there would make a mockery of the commitments in our neighbourhood plan. I think it's contrary to district and town policies and contrary to the government's view that local people affected should have the final say in planning. It's cloud cuckoo land to suggest that family shopping for hundreds of new additional residents is going to be done at a small shop and newsagents nearby. Section 106 monies may help fund the new surgery in Birchley Green. But as you know, Section 106 monies can't pay running costs like staffing, and the NHS has a staffing crisis more than a buildings crisis, and that's what's blocking good services to the public. They've already got sewage overflows from the main sewer, and we know that there's terrible existing road congestion in Bengio, which is yet unresolved. Building on that field would encroach into the rural area beyond existing housing boundaries, extremely detrimental to the local character and appearance. We're talking habitat loss, skylarks nest there. We're talking increased pollution, as any residents there will be heavily dependent on cars to access employment, leisure activities and shopping. Worse, it places restrictions on walking and cycling both for pleasure and exercise in the area. You will recall that the planning inspector's finding was that the landscape in this field is of exceptional value. That's our view too. And for that reason, at short notice, 600 people almost have signed a petition against this. And that's 600 voters who will not forget broken promises not to develop this land if the quarrying didn't go ahead. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Councillor Jane Goody, the Executive Member for Planning and Growth, to provide a response.
Thank you, Chairman. As a strategic site allocation, which forms part of the Council's overall approach to meeting its evidenced housing needs by 2033, the Hart 4 site was removed from the Greenbelt in its entirety on adoption of the district plan in 2018. The principle of development in this location has therefore already been established, subject to the detailed criteria in policy Hart 4 being met. Any future planning application would be assessed against the contents of this policy and all other relevant policies in the plan. This is clearly a complex matter, and I'm therefore going to request that officers post both my response this evening and some additional information on the council's website. I will also have hard copies available of it at the Hertford Councillor Surgery on Saturday. I've actually got a few copies here too, so perhaps I should just wander over and hand a few out.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Goodeve, and thank you to all the members of Save Benjo Field for turning up tonight. You can stay for the rest of the meeting if you wish, but if not, please have a nice evening. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right, we're going to go back to agenda item 1 now, which is Chairman's announcements. Right, this has been quite an exceptional 4 months since our last council meeting. The passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II involved 2 weeks of events, including the proclamation of the new King, Charles III, and very many commemorative events for the late Queen. The events that I personally were involved in were the greatest honour, not just of my time as a councillor here, but probably the greatest privilege and honour of my life. I've also received a very nice card thanking this council for their kind condolences sent to King Charles III on the passing of his mother, Queen Elizabeth. If you want to see that card, I'm happy to pass it around. At the end of September, I held my charity race night, which went exceptionally well, and we raised over £1,250 towards my charity. My deputy chairman, Rosemary Bolton, and myself have attended lots of events and awards ceremonies, including Love Parks Week, Heritage Week events, a Freedom event in Ware, Breathe Easy Coffee and Cake event, 999 Emergency Services Day, Champion of Champions Award congratulations, and the Pride of Stevenage Awards, to name but a few. Last Sunday, Councillor Bolton laid wreaths at the remembrance ceremonies in Hertford and Ware, and I laid wreaths in Bishop Stortford and Sawbridgeworth, and Councillor Ken Crofton, I can't see him, Ken Crofton, very kindly laid the wreath in Buntingford, so thank you, Ken. Future events and dates for your diary. This coming Sunday, it's the High Sheriff's Justice Service at St Albans Cathedral, which will be attended by both my Deputy Chairman and myself. I have another fundraising event for my charity on the 15th of April next year, which will be a free event. This is to be an afternoon tea or barbecue in Much Haddam with a brass band, possibly Ware Brass. Food and drink will be provided and invitations will be sent out to all councillors, town, parish, district, county, and the chain gang. I would be extremely grateful if you could let your town and parish councils know. That's the 15th of April next year. Together with the Mayor of Hertford, we are currently trying to organise an evening or a series of evenings to demonstrate to local people how to cook cheap and easy meals. This event is being organised to help struggling families with the cost of living crisis. It is also trying to promote the reuse of food rather than food waste. A chef or cook will be brought in to demonstrate how simple ingredients can be turned into quick, easy, tasty meals. This is a joint initiative with the Mayor of Hertford, Sue Barber. We are also very grateful to Simon Barfoot, who is helping us with the organisation and the funding of this event. On the 7th of December, the High Sheriff of Hertfordshire, Sally Burton, DL, will be visiting this authority, meeting the leader of the council, the chief executive, before visiting Spectrum, which is just down the road in Hertford. Spectrum is a facility that helps people with drug and alcohol addiction, which is the theme of the High Sheriff's year this year. I have a few awards to tell you about as well. Bishop Stortford bid was re-elected for the next 5 years by the town centre traders. This will enable the bid to press ahead with a raft of new initiatives. You can read about these initiatives in their press release. Last year, our economic development team did a lot of work on business support during the COVID recovery period. The team coordinated a programme of networking and support events. Can somebody close the door? Network and support events across the county and on behalf of 8 other districts in Hertfordshire, as well as giving out various grants locally to encourage businesses to take up new premises. That scheme was so successful, at one point we were also administering a similar scheme for North Herts Council. As a result of that, the Federation of Small Businesses have awarded East Herts their Programme of Business Support Award for the East of England, and they will be coming to the next meeting in December to congratulate us. So I would like to say thanks to the team, specifically Chris Smith, Hilary Marsh and Azra Bitternate. Our next meeting will be the Christmas meeting, where I am hoping to lay on some food and drinks. And if you wish, you can wear something festive for this meeting. It doesn't have to be a Christmas jumper. It could be a tie, scarf, waistcoat, jacket, or even festive trousers. I'll have some charity collecting buckets available if you want to throw a few coins in. That'd be fantastic. And now on to the leaders' announcements. Councillor Hayley.
Thank you very much, Chairman. It's very difficult to know how I can possibly follow Councillor Deering's trousers. But, I'm sure when we get to December, we will find a way. We have a very long agenda tonight with some very important items on it. So I'm not going to take up or ask too much of your time. I just want to say again that we are pleased to have taken part in the sad events following the death of the Queen and the celebrations that then went on following the appointment of the King, or the passing of the throne to the King. It was a busy week for a number of us, and I think ultimately it was a sad but very historic event, and one which I'm sure most of us hope we won't see again in our lifetime. So we've had a glorious summer. We've now gone into the dark of winter, although it is still quite warm, and this council chamber is at a temperate temperature. So I would like to say thank you to all of you, and we will see you in December for nibbles and drinks. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. We're going on to agenda item 7 now, which is public questions. 2 questions have been submitted. May I remind members of the public that both the questioner and responding executive member must ensure that the question and the reply is succinct, as the total time allowed for consideration of these questions shall not exceed 15 minutes. Given the fact that we now publish the full response the day after this meeting, short verbal responses are to be encouraged so that we may keep to this time limit. So first of all, the first question, may I invite David Royal to come and ask his question, please?
Thank you, Chairman. My question is for Councillor Graham McAndrew, Executive Member for Environmental Sustainability, on behalf of Sustainable Sawbridgeworth Community Group. Sawbridgeworth Town Council produced its own local cycling and walking improvement plan, the famous LC WIP, in August 2018, which is over 4 years ago. We note that in North Hertfordshire, there's just been consultation on proposed walking and cycling improvements in Hitchin, Letchworth Garden City, Baldock, Royston and Nebworth as part of their local cycling walking infrastructure plans. Can we please ask how the East Herts LC WIP work is progressing? Has it actually started? What stage is it at? When and how can local groups feed into it? And when is it due for completion? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. I'll ask Councillor Graham McAndrew to respond, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just before I respond to David Royal, I'd like to congratulate the Bishop Stortford bid in securing a new term of office. Thank you. Thank you to David for his question. An LC whip to cover the district is being jointly prepared in partnership with HCC, the lead authority on this project. Well, East Herts Council is ready to commence work on the LC whip at the earliest opportunity. A change in HCC staff has meant that this council has been awaiting confirmation on the timeline for the next steps of this work to progress. HCC has recently advised that the new member of staff is due to start shortly, and also that the project manager has been identified at the consultancy who will be supporting this project. So it is therefore expected that initial work will commence in the coming weeks. Public consultation is a key element of LC whips, and this will certainly occur as part of the East Herts project. The expected timeline for which will be finalised when the full programme is confirmed in due course. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Royal, do you have a supplementary question?
I did have, but I think Councillor McAndrew has answered it. My supplementary question was, why is East Herts lagging behind other authorities in Hertfordshire in delivering walking and cycling improvements?
Okay,
But I guess you've answered that.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Now we have the second question, which is from James Dean. Can I invite James Dean to ask his question, please? Once again, this is to Graham McAndrew.
Is it working? Okay. So this is about the changes to car parking in public car parks. As some background, the only parking that we have near our house is a public car park. During the week, this car park only offers half-day and full-day tickets. My partner's working pattern is leaving before 8:30 and returning after 6:30 in the evening and parking overnight. The introduction of new proposals will mean that we have to pay for a half day, which is £3.60, just to cover the 2 hours between 6:30 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. For 5 days a week. Including the additional £1.50 for Sundays, this means almost £80 a month that we're going to have to pay. We understand the need for the council to raise money, and your proposals, as stated, are targeting commuters and shoppers who have at least one alternative option, i.e. using a bus, cycling, walking. We have no other options as residents. We also have a 2-year-old son, so it's not like we can park miles away from our house and walk. So I'd like to ask, what are the council intending to do to mitigate the impact of these new parking proposals on residents who have no option but to park in public car parks?
Thank you, Mr. Dean. Councillor McAndrew.
Thank you, Chair. Can I thank James Dean for his question, and in response, I understand and appreciate that a small number of residents make use of the council's car parks overnight due to limited parking options on street. The council has decided to make better use of its car parks by ensuring that the user pay for the service. It is therefore important that we seek to balance the needs of the car park customers and also local residents against the council's responsibility to ensure a fair return on its investment that delivers value for money for the taxpayer. When evening car park charges are introduced, there are options that we can consider, including implementing a permit type arrangement with eligible residents who have no on-street parking options available to them. I note that Crown Terrace itself is controlled by a single yellow line waiting restriction that stops at 6:30 p.m. Residents may therefore legitimately park on the street from 6:30 p.m. until 8:30 a.m. in the morning, should they wish to do so. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Dean, do you wish to ask a supplementary question?
Does this still work? No, I think that about covers it. I was going to put forward the idea of a residents' permit
Yeah.
for the car parks that just covers the additional hours of 6:30 PM to 8:30 PM. So I'm not asking that we don't pay anything at all.
That's right, yeah.
I'm asking that we have a permit that just covers those additional hours.
Officers are looking into that and they'll be in contact.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. Right, the next item is members' questions. 5 questions have been submitted, and I remind members again that the total of time allowed for consideration of any of these questions submitted shall not exceed 15 minutes. Given the fact that we now publish the full responses the day after this meeting, short verbal responses are to be encouraged so that we may keep to the time limit. Any remaining questions not dealt with in the 15-minute time frame will be responded to in writing before the next ordinary meeting of this council. All responses will be published on the website as soon as possible after this meeting. So, taking the questions in the order they were submitted, may I invite Councillor David Snowden to ask his question, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could I ask Councillor Jan Goody, the Executive Member for Planning and Growth, whether she could make a statement about the future of Launchpad once the Old River Lane works commence?
Thank you for the advance notice of the question. Launchpad is a popular and well-used facility in the town, and many businesses are getting nervous about its future within the Old River Lane development. We are actively seeking a new venue and have identified 2 possible options, one of which is quite advanced in terms of negotiations. We hope to have resolved the issue before Christmas and be in a new venue from the 1st of April.
Thank you, Councillor Goody. It's good to hear that we are in advanced negotiations with an alternative. I'm sure local businesses would be happy to know that. But could you please comment on what communication has been going on with local businesses who would be affected?
The award-winning Chris Smith, our Economic Development Manager, is liaising closely with the businesses in the Launchpad about the options, and I know several of them have committed to stay with us if and when we do move.
Thank you.
Thank you. The second question is from Councillor Ben Crystal. May I invite Ben Crystal to ask his question, please?
Thank you, Chair. Another one for Councillor Goody. So in May this year, the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea ruled that all Grade 2 listed and most Grade 2 star listed properties can install solar panels without seeking listed building consent. In an order applying the change, the council stated that solar panels would appear as an honest and clearly modern intervention and normally read as part of the equipment necessary to service the uses conducted within the building, similar to water tanks, television aerials and other equipment. Will East Herts Council introduce a similar change?
Councillor Goody.
This is complex and I apologise for the length of the answer. The permission for solar panels on listed buildings referred to is as a result of local listed building consent order. These were introduced by the Enterprise and Regulatory Reform Act 2013, but have not been widely used as yet. If introduced, they can grant blanket consent for works of any description for the alteration or extension of listed buildings, and means the owners of those listed buildings specified in the order will not have to make individual applications, but will be able to proceed with the works, provided they comply with any conditions that may be attached to the order. East Herts has around 4,000 listed buildings, a similar total to the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, but the context is very different. We could not serve any sort of blanket order in the same way due to the variety of our building stock and the many vernacular buildings with features such as thatched roofs that would not be suitable for the introduction of solar panels. In many instances, in predominantly rural areas like East Herts, solar panels are best placed within the grounds of a building or on outbuildings rather than on the main roof of a listed building, where they could result in avoidable harm to the character and special interest of the listed building. There are many instances whereby solar panels can be installed on listed buildings without harming their character and special interest, such as where there are parapets that hide the view of the roof from street level. The example given in the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea is of predominantly urban terraces of listed buildings with roofs that are not prominent within the street scene. In order to put in place a similar local listed building consent order in East Herts, we would need to survey all 4,000 listed buildings within our district to ascertain which would be suitable for inclusion within the order. This would be a sizable task, and resources would need to be put in place in order to undertake it. It should be noted that if East Herts were to grant such an order, if in the future it was to be revoked, compensation would be payable for the withdrawal of consent. There are therefore financial implications for the council, which would have to be carefully considered, and specialist legal advice would need to be obtained on this point.
Thank you. Councillor Crystal, do you wish to ask a supplementary question?
Thanks very much for the answer. No, I don't have a supplementary. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from Councillor Chris Wilson, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm over here. It's a question to Councillor Goodeve. I recently asked a question at a previous full council meeting about the lack of progress of the cycle route through the Meads and Grange paddocks in Bishop Stortford, and was told this was a county council project and that therefore there was no information that could be given to me by East Herts. However, it is the case that this route is not an official cycleway and so not necessarily wholly within the remit of the county council. It is also a route that goes partly through East Herts council owned land and is at least theoretically partly funded through Section 106 money from an East Herts development. In light of this, I again ask, what role has East Herts had in the delay to this cycle route, and what are our plans with respect to the part of it that goes through East Herts owned land? What negotiations have been done with the department of the county council that are dealing with this proposed route?
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Goodeve.
Thank you for the advance notice of the question, Councillor Wilson. The Rye Street to Grange Paddocks cycle route is a concept which is supported in principle by all interested local authority parties. Our Parks and Open Spaces team have recently been working with Hertfordshire County Council's Countryside and Rights of Way service to confirm a preferred route and establish delivery costs. Currently, Section 106 contributions from the Bishop Stortford North development held by East Herts Council make up approximately 40% of the projected delivery costs. Work to establish a mechanism to secure further funding, as well as delivery, adoption and ongoing maintenance responsibility, is ongoing.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
No, thank you for the answer.
Thank you. We now move on to question 4, which is also Councillor Chris Wilson.
Thank you. This is a question for Councillor Eric Buckmaster, the Executive Member for Wellbeing. So the recent Castle Park redevelopment in Bishop Stortford, while mainly successful, has included a failure with respect to contractors who were employed to construct the new skate park. My understanding is that these contractors failed to complete their assignment and honour their contract and are due to be replaced. They have, however, pocketed public money in the process to the tune of more than £100,000. While I'm aware that it was Bishop Stortford Town Council that ran this project, East Herts are partners in this exercise, and our money and our resources have been used to help fund the redevelopment. Can I therefore ask if the council has asked BSTC if they performed due diligence and for an explanation as to why such funds have been misspent?
Councillor Buckmaster, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Wilson. Just to avoid any misconceptions, the Castle Park project is a joint project with Bishop Stortford Town Council, but it's led by East Herts, and therefore it was East Herts that let the contract to construct the skate park development. And a tender process was carried out to commission the company, which included the financial checks and the normal due diligence that you would expect, so such as insurances, references, and so on. And following an assessment of the works completed, we can confirm the company only received funds for the work carried out, and therefore funds were not misspent. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson, do you have a supplementary question?
No, thank you for the information.
Thank you. We come to the last question, which is Councillor Tim Page, please.
Thank you, Chairman.
This question is for Joan Goody, Executive Member for Planning and Growth. Can she please explain to the council and specifically to Stortford Fields residents the reasons for the delay in establishing a working community management trust that meets the council's planning conditions and can demonstrate that it is both accountable to the council and fit for purpose?
Councillor Goody.
Thank you, Councillor Page, for the advance notice of the question. The legal agreement that was secured as part of the original planning permission for Stortford Fields requires the developer consortium to establish a community trust in accordance with the provisions within the agreement. To clarify, whilst the trust needs to be set up in accordance with the provisions in the Section 106 agreement, it won't be accountable to the council. It will, however, manage and maintain the community buildings and community infrastructure within Stortford Fields, such as parks and landscaping, and will include representatives from the council and residents of Stortford Fields, as well as the consortium of house builders, who collectively will be party to decision-making and finance governance associated within the activities of the trust. Over time, the house builders' involvement in the trust will diminish in favour of greater resident control. We are aware that the developer consortium has set up the Stortford Fields Estate Management Company, which has taken on responsibility for the community assets delivered to date. The council acknowledges that progress on the establishment of the community trust has been slow, and it has been a bigger task than anticipated. It is recognised that this needs to be addressed as a priority, and officers are starting to make good progress. We are currently working closely with the consortium to understand the workings of the Stortford Fields Estate Management Company in more detail, and to ensure that a community trust is established over time that fully meets the provisions of the legal agreement. This will take some time, but remains a key priority for us going forward, and we will ensure that residents are kept informed when there are updates to share. Meetings between the council officers and representatives for the consortium have recently taken place in order to ensure that the shadow board is up and running over the next couple of months. The council is bringing in specialist support to advise of detailed matters.
Thank you. Councillor Tim Page, would you like to ask a supplementary question?
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Goody suggests that the community trust will be set up within the next couple of months. Could she give a more precise target date for that, please?
We envisage something happening before Christmas.
Thank you. That concludes the members' questions. I just want to, just a little announcement. There's a car in the car park with the lights on. The registration number is YF58CDN. If that's your car, you might want to go and turn the lights off. Now we come on to item 9, which is the executive report for the 6th of September and the 25th of October. May I invite the leader to present this report?
Thank you very much, Chairman. These two executive reports combined into the first pages on pages 32 and 33. These contain a number of items that we are required to vote on going through council for firm decision making. Obviously, it looks as though it's a fairly substantial document. It starts at page 32 and goes through to 854. And I'm sure we can all spot the typo on page 700. I think what the important thing to say is these are documents which are made available to the public. It is important that they see the addendums and the detail that go into these documents in order for us to reach those decisions. So in fact, they are covering neighbourhood plans, SPDs, and also the waste contract. So although they are a substantial number of pages, please do not feel that they are wasted pages. They are pages which are there for information available to our members of public. It would be very easy for us to just put the recommendations in on the front page and refer everybody to the website. However, that is not how we do it. So, Chairman, if I may, the first agenda item on 9A, which requires us to vote at council, I would ask Councillor Goodeve to present this report, please.
Thank you. Councillor Goodeve, please.
Thank you, Chairman. However, given that you are the local member for Match Review, you may wish to extend your personal thanks to those that put such considerable time and effort into putting the plan together.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Goodeve. I'm going to keep it brief. Just to thank the Neighbourhood Plan Steering Group for Much Adam, and particularly their chairman, Councillor Ian Hunt, who I think he gave something like 4 or 5 years of his life to this neighbourhood plan. Thank you, Councillor Goodeve. Are you proposing that?
Yeah, and I'd like to ask for a seconder
I'll second that, Chair.
and
Thank
to go
you.
to the recommendation on page 33 that the Much Adam neighbourhood plan be formally
Okay.
made.
Is there anybody who wants to ask a question or have comment on this? No? Okay, this is the first item in the executive report on which there is a recommendation. The recommendation A is detailed on page 33. So members, can I have a show of hands whether you're in favour of this motion? Thank you. Anybody against? And any abstentions? Sorry, was that against? No. Okay, I'll vote for. I think that was unanimous then. So that is carried. Thank you very much. Item 9B, Leader.
I think Councillor Goldspink is still waving at us. Councillor
Oh, sorry.
Goldspink.
Councillor Goldsmith.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you. And I'm sorry, I wasn't quick enough. When the leader presented her report, she did refer to the minutes of the executive meetings. There were 2 meetings. And I'm afraid I have a question relating to the minutes on the second meeting, which is the 25th of October. So I wonder if I could ask that.
Is that for the item we've just discussed? Because we're going through this executive report.
No, it's for a different thing which was voted on in the executive meeting on the 25th of October and recorded in the minutes. And I have a question about those minutes.
Is that a later item?
Can I take advice, please, from James as to whether or not we can do that, or whether this is in fact something that should come back to the next executive?
Yeah, I'll just ask for some clarity. Is it something that's actually on this agenda that you're referring to, Councillor Goldspink, or is it something separate?
It's something separate, which was recorded in the minutes of the executive meeting when they discussed the proposed increase in car charging.
I think that would be better dealt with at the next meeting of the executive in that case, because if it's not on this agenda, then it's not for discussion at this meeting. So at the next meeting of the executive, when those minutes are brought up, you may want to speak to those minutes at that time.
But we have been presented with the minutes tonight, as Councillor Hazy said. We've got lots and lots of papers so that people can see what has happened, so everything is transparent. And I'm sure residents are very interested in car parking charges. I understand we can't debate them here because it was resolved matters, but I do have some questions about some of the things which were decided.
Yeah, I still think there's a bit of confusion because normally with minutes, we're asked to agree the minutes. That's not what's being asked here. The minutes are there for completion. So normally when minutes are presented, as was done at the beginning of this meeting, members are asked to vote on the accuracy of the minutes as presented. That's not happening here. Those minutes will inevitably come to the next meeting of the executive, at which point those will be discussed. The minutes are included on this agenda, but you're not being asked to vote on their accuracy at this meeting.
Well, I'm not querying the accuracy, but I'd just like to know when the charges are going to be brought in to force, and that may be immediately, which may be before the executive next meets.
I think Councillor Goldspink, I will certainly want to follow James's advice. You know, this council is here to make the decisions that are in front of you, and the minutes are there for the next executive for you to query. Also, those car parking charges have already been through council. So I think anything that you wish to raise should either have been raised earlier at the executive, if you were uncertain about any points, or when they went through council.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's fairly straightforward. Can I move on to the next item, which is Hunsdon Neighbourhood Plan Adoption, item 9B? Who's presenting this, please?
Yes, again, another fantastic neighbourhood plan. And again, I pass over to Councillor Goodeve to present the details.
Thank you, Leader. We do have the local member in the room, and I think it's most appropriate that Councillor Eric Buckmaster has the opportunity to express his thanks and appreciation to the Neighbourhood Planning Group.
Thank you, Councillor Buckmaster.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, this is another great neighbourhood plan from my ward. The first one was the to do with the Gilston area, which was the Hunsdon, Eastwick and Gilston neighbourhood plan, which won awards. This is a part of the parish which falls outside of that, so it's a separate neighbourhood plan. They've put just as much work into it. I'm really proud of the work they do. It's a great read, and I just thank them very much for all their hard work. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Buckmaster. I take it, Councillor.
And I'm seconding.
Thank you. So, members, we have a proposer and a seconder. This is the second item in the executive report on page 33, recommendation A. Members, can I have a show of hands whether you are in favour of this motion? Thank you. Is there anybody against? And are there any abstentions? No, that is carried. Thank you. Next item is item 9C, which is Old River Lane Supplementary Planning Document Adoption. And this is Councillor Goodeve, I think, again.
Thank you, Chairman. This report seeks to gain members' agreement to adopt a revised Old River Lane supplementary planning document following public consultation on the draft. As you will know, Old River Lane is a development site allocated in the East Herts District Plan 2018, which forms a key opportunity for sustainable redevelopment in the heart of Bishop Stortford and an opportunity to complement the retail, community and leisure provision in the town centre. The ambition is to create a well-designed development that responds to the character of the surrounding area. The Old River Lane SPD seeks to guide this ambition by setting out a clear vision and development objectives, establishing placemaking and design principles, and by setting out a strategic master planning framework to bring forward appropriate redevelopment at Old River Lane. When adopted, the SPD will become a material consideration in assessing the quality of the proposals on the site and in decision-making on planning applications. A draft version of the Old River Lane SPD was published for public consultation for 4 weeks between the 5th of July and the 2nd of August. The consultation received over 400 comments from nearly 100 individuals. Officers have fully considered all of the issues raised and have made amendments to the document where they would add value to the SPD. I would now like to take members to the 3 recommendations on page 34 of the reports.
Can I have a seconder first of all, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to second and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Wiley. So we have a proposer and a seconder. This item has 3 recommendations, A to C on page 34. Do we have any comments? Councillor Goldspring.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, well, I welcome this report. I do support the objectives, 6 objectives, which are in it. And I'm pleased to see that there's reference made to policy BISH 8 for the site, which does state that the number of new dwellings to be built should be only around 100. I'm very pleased with that. I'm also pleased that it does talk about the importance of the historic sightlines of the historic buildings in Bishop Stortford. So I welcome all of this. I do think maybe it's a little bit vague in some respects, but on the whole, I think it's a good report and I support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goldspring. Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as has been highlighted by Councillor Goodeve, there's been an awful lot of responses to the consultation for this SPD. I believe you quoted something like 400. There were, a good couple of hundred pages of this on this. You mentioned that the points have been taken into consideration, but I noticed from the track changes version of the SPD that there weren't as many changes as perhaps had been made from the draft to the final version as would have been suggested by the number of comments that had been submitted. And I note again, there's a lot of the comments focused on making sure that this isn't too vague. So have we got that balance right? I know you said the officer's taken a good look at it, but you're 100% confident that we have that balance right in this document, of not having something that's too vague. And also, again, this it refers to the cinema, the 5 screens, and I wanted to clarify whether the loan that we've taken out for that has been drawn down yet. Although we are planning to take out the council, we sign that off, but has that now been drawn down? So that's an adjacent question, not directly related to the SPD, but something I'd like clarification on, just very briefly, if possible, please.
Thank you. Councillor Goodeve.
My understanding is that if we were to have public works loan boards, you're not allowed to take the loans in advance. You can only take it at the time that you need it. But if I'm wrong on that point, there's Jeff for finance. Perhaps you could correct me.
Could one of the officers, maybe Stephen, answer that? Lovely, thank you. Are there any other comments? Councillor Wiley, did you want to come back in?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I am supporting this, but I do have concerns over this development. My concerns are that any developer will wriggle out of any agreement that they can do. And I can just see that they will come back and say, well, we need more housing, or we need less social housing, less affordable housing. So we must make sure that any agreement is watertight, and the first sign of wriggling by the developers, they actually get a metaphorical kicking to make sure that we actually get what Bishop Stortford wants and not what the developers want.
Thank you, Councillor Wiley. I don't think that needs a reply, really, does it?
No, I just wanted to make the comment that this evening is about the SPD. It's not about a planning application and any negotiations around section 106. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodeve. Are there any more comments or queries? Councillor Curtis, you already had a go, but if it's very brief, please.
Yeah, I understand that Councillor Goody's point that this is about the SPD, but this SPD has been created with a planning application in mind. We would not have an Old River Lane SPD if there are no plans for the Old River Lane site. So I just think that it's important that we consider it in that context, this SPD, that it is related to the cinema plans proposed and the housing proposed with it.
Thank you. Councillor Goodeve, do you want to respond?
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Okay. Does anybody else have any comments? No. Okay. This item is in the executive report in 3 recommendations. Recommendations A to C are detailed on page 34. So members, can I have a show of hands whether you're in favour of this recommendation? Thank you. Are there any against? Yeah. And are there any abstentions? Thank you, members. That is carried. Next item is 9D Waste Contract Service Design, which I believe is being proposed by Councillor Graham McAndrew.
Thank you, Chairman. At the executive meeting held on the 25th of October, the executive were asked to give authority to proceed with a competitive dialogue procurement for the waste and recycling collection and street cleansing contract due to expire in May 2025. There were 21 recommendations for the executive to agree, with just one needing to be recommended to council under item 9D. The recommendation to council is to approve the capital and estimated revenue spend in relation to the introduction of a new weekly separate food waste collection service in 23-litre caddies for houses and in wheel bins for flats in the East Hertfordshire from 2025. I would before moving on, Chairman, I would like to thank officers who spent a long time putting all this together for members. And there was about 15 members actually on the workshops, and it was done over 2-3 months to bring up all these recommendations. And it was very complex, the project. The joint working group was with North Hearts was beneficial, and it's gratifying to see both councils in complete agreement aligning the recommendations, of which there was 21. So I propose the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor McAndrew. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Holly Drake.
Happy to second this item.
Thank you. Do we have any comments on this item? Councillor Goldspink.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I welcome this, and I'm delighted to see that there will now be weekly collections of food waste. I think that's a great improvement. I'm intrigued to see how it will work out. Some bins are collected every 3 weeks, and some every 2 weeks, and some every 1 week. But the contractors seem to be content that they will manage to juggle all the logistics. So I'm very pleased about that. Yes, and very happy to support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goldspink. Councillor Bermitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your indulgence. Having lived in Germany, the scourge of what we used to call the bio bin, which is basically for food waste, was an absolute total and utter travesty. In that, excuse me, in the winter months it wasn't so bad, but in the summer months, within a few hours, the bins were absolutely laden with maggots and flies and all sorts of things, and actually proposed a hazard. I think this is not a very good move, personally speaking, from experience of having this sort of a facility afforded to us in a foreign country. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bermitz. Do you want to respond to that, Councillor McAndrew?
The food waste will be collected weekly, Chairman.
Yeah.
But it's collected 2 weekly at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Townsend was next.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Really, it's just a matter of my ignorance, perhaps, but it's stated here 23 litre caddies. 23 litres is normally 23 kilograms. So if that caddy is not a wheeled entity, how will many people transport it? Or is it something that people are expected to be able to actually lift? It refers then to wheeled bins for flats. So I can only assume that as the statement about caddies doesn't refer to wheeled receptacles, it's something that needs to be carried. Could someone enlighten me, please?
Thank you. Councillor McAndrew?
Yeah, the caddies will be carried and they are used throughout the country, so there hasn't been any sort of problems with that. But they're not full all the time. Some households will just sort of cover basically the bottom. Others may have a few sort of inches, whatever. Each household will have a different amount.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Townsend?
I believe it does. Thank you very much, Councillor.
Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor McAndrew. Paragraph 3.16 of the executive report of this item refers to the recommendation to provide a separate weekly food collection service early in the contract alongside a free weekly residual bin collection service. And that's a big change. I know that we have briefly discussed it at overview and scrutiny, but I wonder in this contract design process if the executive member would commit tonight to agree to have 2 separate options available for this contract, one in which we go down the having residual waste collected once every 3 weeks, and one where we have our existing frequency of the residual bin collection service. This is an item that is controversial amongst residents of my ward. And again, having a smaller residual waste bin as well. Some people do have quite a lot of bins, people who are disabled, people with incontinence pad, people with young children. And I understand that we need to make changes to this contract, but I think that we need to make sure we're thinking all of this through. So if we could have 2 separate options drawn up for this contract for this council to then go on to consider, I think that would be very useful. So would the executive member please confirm if he's willing to to look into that and to give us that option later on down the line when we sign this contract off eventually?
It's actually gone out for a 3-weekly collection, residual and 1 weekly food collection.
So there's no 2-weekly collection on the cards. We can't have 2-weekly residual waste collection.
2-weekly residual collection. There'll be 2-weekly garden waste collection.
Thank you. Councillor Dumont.
Thank you, Chairman. It's just following on from Councillor Burmett's comments about maggots and food in the bins. Are those sort of biodegradable carrier bags? Are they allowed? Because they would mitigate that problem quite a bit. If you're allowed to put your food in and tie a knot in it, you don't get the maggots go everywhere, or you don't get the flies to lay the eggs in the first place. So I don't know if they're allowed or not. It'd be interesting to know.
Biodegradable bags would be allowed because when it goes to the anabolic centre, the bags get separated from the food waste, so they get extracted out. But if they're biodegradable, they may end up sort of in there somewhere along the line.
Thank you. Councillor Buckmaster.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to add really that there'll be an educational element around this. We did some compositional analysis across county, and regardless of whether individual authorities had separate food waste collections or not, a very large proportion, probably up to 25% to 30% of what was going into the residual waste bin, the black bin, was food related. And quite a lot of it apparently was packets that were unopened that maybe had gone past their sell-by date. So there has to be an educational element, awareness, which is going on. That's already started. And when this is done correctly, then far less will need to go into the black bin. It won't be the type of elements that will cause residents alarm and actually can easily fit into the 3-weekly cycle. And I believe it's been proven in other parts of the country. So I'm very comfortable that going down the route that's being suggested is the right one. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Buckmaster. I think that's some very important points there.
Councillor Buckmaster is quite correct. The compositional waste in these sites is 30+%. And what actually happens is that when the crews go out and collect the rubbish, whether it's residual waste or recycled waste, they actually look, when the vehicle goes back to, say, Buntingford and gets tipped, they actually look to see what's actually inside. And if there's a big cross mix of product, they will see what streets that vehicles have actually been to, and they'll do an education program, putting leaflets out into the letter boxes, etc. So they can actually target that close to where the product comes from.
Thank you, Councillor McAndrew. Councillor Kemp, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to add to the points made by Councillor Buckmaster and to reassure Councillor Burmix. Many authorities around the country already do collect food waste separately. I've had separate experience of it in another borough where it is collected separately, and the results have been very good. It also keeps the residual waste bin much cleaner and less smelly, and it's generally agreed to be a very good thing. And if handled properly, there should be absolutely no worse problems than as it is at the moment in residual waste, which is collected less frequently, or when it's been put into garden waste bins, as has been done in the past.
Thank you, Councillor Kemp. Councillor Beckett, please.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I'd just like to support the comments in favour of the separate food collection. So I'm sure all of you, it's no secret that I'm not living in East Herts, I'm just over the border in Essex, and we already do that. The only thing I would ask the executive member is whether we will provide the green bags for food waste, which is currently done where I am, and we have no maggot problem. My black bin is a third to half full, and that's collected fortnightly, so I've got no worries about a 3-week collection.
Thank you, Councillor Beckett. Do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, we'll look into that.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Burmix.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your indulgence. So you're basically saying that the 3-weekly black bin collection is a fait accompli.
Yes.
Councillor Hazy, please.
Thank you. I think we just have to look at what waste we should not be producing. It really is a question of, and I have to get the 3 R's right, reuse, recycle, and reduce. Thank you. And so I think the reduce bit in this context is extremely important. And I think we also need to note that the government will be bringing in legislation that food waste has to be collected separately. And we all need to be much more aware of how much we actually throw away. And what we should not be doing is throwing it away. And I'm sure that's something that Simon Barfoot can teach us all. We can have cookery lessons in council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hazy. Councillor Kay, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I sometimes look in my neighbour's bin with his permission. I'm talking about the black bin, and I notice there's very little in it. I must admit I've taken the occasional opportunity to put some of my excess rubbish in there, but with his permission again. The point being that within East Herts, 43%, that's nearly half of what is in a black bin, shouldn't be in the black bin anyway. It can be recycled. So we need to encourage people to think differently in many ways. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Kay. Councillor Snowden, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just to echo in part what Councillor Kay said, I know personally that my black bin is actually very rarely full. It's often a third to half full, and that's it. Councillor McAndrew, it is my understanding as well that those with special needs, whether that is a result of medical waste and adults who have incontinent problems, etc., or people with high dependency children, will have access to more frequent bin collections. Could you confirm that that is correct?
Councillor Snowden is correct that there will be mitigating circumstances and they will be dealt with on a personal individual basis.
Thank you. Councillor Curtis.
Thank you. And just to Councillor McAndrew, I think that if we sign this off tonight, as I assume may be done, that is made clear to members of the public when we go through the contract design process, so that those that are anxious, that use their black bin more frequently, that those people that are anxious about the prospect of free weekly bin collections can have some reassurance there if that's the path we're going to go down. I'm still concerned about this combination though of the once every 3 weeks residual waste collection, but also simultaneously reducing the size of the black bin. Can we have a scheme in place where people can have a bigger bin, the standard size currently once every 3 weeks, if they have more waste, if they can, that can be retained somehow? Where my parents live, there are a lot of people that fill up their bins, relatively high consumption households, and I think we need to be mindful that yes, we can reduce our waste, but we can't expect results overnight with that. And I think we've got to be wary of being over optimistic on that, making sure people do have enough space to have enough bin space in their black bin as much as they will need. So can we please have that retained for people if they wish?
Thank you. Councillor McAndrew, did you want to quickly respond to that?
Councillor Curtis is wandering into the communication side of the introduction of the new food waste regime. And for the members here in the room that attended the workshop, they were aware that the communications was really important. And we had to have a very strong communication leading up to and including the introduction period, where the leaflets will be going out, will be social media, there'll be all sorts of different types of engagement with local communities to explain what's happening, when it's happening, and how they can adapt to the new system.
Thank you, Councillor McAndrew. I've just been reminded by my legal team that you can only actually have one question to each item. So in future, we just want one question from each member, please. Councillor Boylan, please.
I think there's an important point here that Councillor McAndrew, I'm sure, will confirm. I don't believe that we have any intention of going out and replacing everybody's black bin with a smaller bin. So everybody that's got a black bin right now will continue to use that until it's no longer usable or it disappears for one reason.
There'll be a communication on how the bins are going to be distributed to the public, with the one that reduced from 240 down to 180. All new developments will have a 180 litre bin delivered when the current bins run out, when the current stock runs out. So any new development, whether it's in Buntingford, Hartford, Bishop Stortford, they will already be receiving 180 litre bins. So it won't be done overnight, no.
Thank you, Councillor McAndrew. Is that it for comments? Yes. This item in the executive report is one recommendation A, which is detailed on page 34. Members, can we have a show of hands whether you're in favour of this recommendation? Thank you. Are there any against? Is that one? Eight. And one, is there any abstentions? 2 abstentions. Thank you, members. That is carried. Next item is the electoral review of East Herts, pages 855 to 874. Can I invite the leader of the council?
Thank you, Chairman. As the members are aware, the Local Government Boundary Commission for England completed an electoral review of East Herts and published their final recommendations in August 2022. This report sets out the outcome of that review, the process for implementing the recommendations, and other actions arising from the review. Electoral reviews are undertaken where the number of electors represented by each councillor in different parts of an authority has deviated significantly from the average for the council, perhaps due to new development. The aim of the review is to redraw ward boundaries and arrangements so that they reflect community identities, whilst as far as possible equalising the number of electors that each councillor represents. The Commission's final recommendations for East Herts are now laid before Parliament and expected to be approved by the end of the year. They will then come into effect at the all-out elections on the 4th of May next year. The recommendations are shown in full at Appendix A to this report, but in summary, the Commission accepted our recommendation that the total number of councillors at East Herts should continue to be 50. However, from next May, the district will be divided into 26 wards instead of 30. These will be 8 single-member wards, 12 two-member wards, and 3 three-member wards. Only 3 existing district wards will remain unchanged. At parish and town council level, there will be additional wards in Bishop Stortford, Hertford, Ware, and Wareside. The report goes on to set out a number of further actions that are necessary consequent on the ward changes. Firstly, we need to review our polling districts so that they align with the new ward boundaries and to ensure that each has a convenient and accessible polling place for electors. A polling district and polling place review will therefore be undertaken between now and January 2023. Members will be included in this consultation and are encouraged to contribute, especially where they are aware of local premises that might be suitable for use as polling places. As well as the boundary changes, the review will also be an opportunity to identify alternatives to the small number of polling places that were identified as unsuitable at the May 2021 county elections. Following the polling district and polling place review, the electoral register will be republished in mid-February 2023 to incorporate the ward and polling district changes for use at the May elections. Finally, there are a couple of areas where the Commission has recommended that the Council may wish to consider carrying out a community governance review with a view to changing the boundaries of parishes within the district. These are in Ware, where the Town Council has also requested a review, and proposed a number of changes, including taking into the town boundary an area of residential development to the north of the town that is currently in Wearside and Thundridge parishes, and also in the Rush Green area. It would not be possible to conclude all of the statutory stages of a community governance review in time to implement any changes for the May 2023 elections. So it is proposed that officers will report to council after these polls with draft terms of reference for these reviews. Officers will be working up a detailed communication plan to ensure that electors are aware of any changes to wards, polling stations, etc., ahead of next May's elections. In addition, of course, to the other changes that will be in place for these elections arising from the Elections Act of 2022, including the requirement for electors to show ID at the polling stations. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hazy. Can I have a seconder for that proposal, please? Councillor David Snowden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I formally second and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Does any member wish to comment or ask a question? Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Chairman. Just in relation to the proposal for the community governance view for Ware, you'll see that Ware Town Council, which I'm a member of, as others in this chamber have submitted, a number of suggested changes that we wanted these district councils to look at are stated. In total, there are 7. Not all of these are referred to in the report that's been submitted to this meeting. So I just wanted to clarify from the leader, will all 7 be considered? I'm not saying that they're all going to be made, but will they all be considered? Or is it just the ones that are already contained within this report that would be considered?
They will be considered at the appropriate time.
Thank you.
Councillor Dumont.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I just wanted to make a brief comment on number 10, which is going to be Great Amwell and Stansted. First of all, I'm not convinced by the name. I don't know anyone who's ever referred to where we are as Stansteads. I think Great Amwell and Stansted Abbots would be much more appropriate. But what I do wanted to comment in a positive way is it must be very difficult to draw these borders. They have to be drawn somewhere. But I think this new ward much better represents the people that live in both wards, and a lot of people that live in Great Amwell will gravitate to Stansted Abbot. So I welcome these changes.
Thank you, Councillor. And names are always tricky.
Thank you, Councillor Dumont. Councillor Beckett, did you have a question? No. Okay. Yeah, Councillor Crystal.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just had a question about the process. So it all makes good sense. I think the polling district, the polling district review that's taking place, that's been delegated to our chief exec, and that will happen before the elections, and there won't be a council meeting until after that's completed. I just wanted to find out how we're going to be. What's the process for letting members know the results? You know, has that been thought about yet?
As far as I know, that is still in discussion as to how exactly it will be communicated to members. But I think it is very important that members become engaged, because you know where the places can be for members, for residents to come and vote. You know, village halls, somewhere else. And I know that in some of the more rural areas, it's always been in the local pub, which I suspect is not going to be acceptable in future. But again, it is something which is up for discussion, because we want to make sure that these are very clear to residents, that they are given every opportunity of going to vote, because we all know how important it is that our residents partake in the democratic process of electing us as councillors. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Chairman. A very minor point, but with reference to the naming standards, etc., which obviously you already appreciate can become complex. We often get mail, etc., delivered to people that are actually in Stansted rather than Stansted Abbots. It's a frequent thing, being close to the boundary, and therefore I would like to emphasise the importance of that, as pointed out by my colleague. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Townsend. Are there any more questions? Yes, Councillor Kemp.
Thank you. I'd just like to especially express our appreciation for the very prompt response to the request from Ware Town Council for the Community Governance Review. And this will be very helpful in that it means that when the Ware to North and East Ware development is completed, there will be appropriate electoral boundaries and governance for it.
Thank you. Are there any more questions or comments? Councillor Snowden, you wish to come back?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to the question of the names, obviously the names were all suggested or they're all decided upon by the Local Government Boundary Commission for England, and they were decided on based upon submissions from, well, those actually many dozens of people who did submit proposals, but also their own views. East Herts can change the names of wards if it so wishes. However, it can't really do so within the first 5 years after it comes into force. If we were to try and do that, we'd need the Local Government Boundary Commission for England's approval to do so. So in about 5 years' time, we can change the names of the wards if we so wish, and it would be on our own cognizance as opposed to just the Boundary Commission's.
Thank you, Councillor Snowden. If there's no other questions, I want to take members to the 6 recommendations. They are A to F. They're on pages 856 and 857 of the agenda pack. Members, could you raise your hand to indicate whether you're in favour of these 6 recommendations? Thank you. Is there anybody against? And any abstentions? No, I think that's unanimous, so that is carried. Thank you very much. Next item is item 11. It's a private bill for Bishop Stortford Cemeteries Act, and I would like to invite Executive Member for Corporate Service, Councillor George Cutting, to present this report, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm introducing this paper in my capacity as a local ward member for Bishop Stortford. As you will see in summary section, this paper sets out the case for a promotion of a private bill to enable the reuse of burial space in 2 cemeteries, either side of Cemetery Road in Bishop Stortford. For clarification purposes, the promotion of this bill would be on behalf of Bishop Stortford Town Council at their request, as opposed to an initiative of this council. The reasons why the Town Council have asked this council to promote this bill on its behalf is set out in detail in the background section to this report, but in summary, there is only sufficient burial space to last until approximately 2036. The only practical way to resolve this is to seek additional powers through a private bill. But there is no other suitable alternative land available to use for burials. As set out in paragraph 3 of the report, there is some uncertainty as to whether a town or parish council has the legal power to promote a private bill independently. However, this council can promote a private bill if it considers it expedient to do so. In this context, expedient includes being of benefit to the inhabitants of the council's area. It will ultimately be for council to resolve whether the promotion of a bill is expedient this evening. The proposed powers of the bill are set out in paragraphs 2.8 and 2.9 of the report. You would also have seen that the parliamentary agents have produced a draft bill which is contained as an appendix at pages 883 to 896. A public consultation was carried out by this council in addition to a previous consultation by the Town Council. There were 7 responses to the consultation, 6 against and 1 in favour, and they have been summarised in paragraph 6.3 as well as the council's assessment of the responses contained in paragraph 6.4. There are no financial implications to this council, as all costs are being met by Bishop Stortford Town Council. In order to promote the bill, a resolution needs to be passed by a majority of the whole number of the members of the authority. The council is asked to approve the recommendations A to C in the report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Cutting. Is there a seconder for that proposal, please? Councillor Snowden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I formally second and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Snowden. Does any member wish to comment or ask a question? Yes, councillor Wiley.
Thank you, Chairman. As leader of Bishop Stortford Town Council, I obviously fully support this proposal. It's just a question for officers. It says burial space Hertfordshire Mercury. I just wonder why we're advertising in the Hertfordshire Mercury, because I don't think anyone in Bishop Stortford would read it. Surely this should have been advertised in the Bishop Stortford newspaper, so as Bishop Stortford residents would be aware of what we're discussing.
Does anyone want to respond to that?
I'm happy to respond. I think that's a typo. It was definitely advertised in 2 Bishop Stortford newspapers. I'm just looking over to my colleague over there. Yeah.
Thank you. Do any other members have any queries or comments? No. Councillor Snowden, do you want to come back in? No? Okay, thank you. So members, there are 3 recommendations. Sorry, I'm taking all these recommendations on block. I hope you're happy with that because they are all related, obviously. There are 3 recommendations, A to C, on page 875 of the agenda pack. Members, could you raise your hands to indicate whether you're in favour of this proposal? Thank you. Is anybody against? And any abstentions? No. Sorry, could you put your hands up? Is that 5? I think there's 5 abstentions. Thank you. That is carried. Thank you. Next item is item 12. This is a report of urgent non-key decision taken on the 12th of August 2022. The change of delegated function for LA1, and this is Councillor Jan Goodeve to present the report, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Since the formation of the Hertfordshire Building Control Partnership, statutory building control functions have been delegated by all partners to Three Rivers District Council. From 15th of August 2022, Three Rivers District Council were withdrawing the signatory function, and East Herts took on this function until the 31st of March 2023, while agreement of a permanent solution across all partners was reached. As there needed to be continuity of this function for statutory reasons, the delegated function for LA1 needed to be agreed as a matter of urgency. The consent of the chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee was given to the taking of a decision as a matter of urgency to agree continuity of the service. The decision was authorised by the executive member, myself, and publicised on the council's website. It is a requirement of the council's constitution that any decision which is taken as a matter of urgency should be reported to the next meeting of the council. This report is submitted to enable council to note the fact that this urgent non-key decision has been taken. I would like to take members to recommendation A on page 899.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder for that proposal, please?
I'm happy to second that, Chairman.
Thank you. Does any member wish to comment or ask a question on this proposal? No. Councillor Bolton, do you want to come in? No. Okay, thank you. So, members, there is only one recommendation, A, on page 899 of the agenda pack. Members, could you raise your hands to indicate whether you're in favour of this proposal? Thank you. Anybody against? And any abstentions? No, I think that's unanimous, so that is carried. Next item is motions on notice. We have 2 motions on notice tonight. The first one is 13A Greenbelt Land, and this is going to be presented by Councillor David Snowden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The motion on Greenbelt Land has come out of very significant public concern about sale of Greenbelt Land in Bishop Stortford and elsewhere. Members will appreciate that this motion has been very, very carefully worded. It is based upon a similar motion that was passed at Bishop Stortford Town Council recently. However, the Bishop Stortford Town Council motion went slightly further, as Stortford Town Council is not a planning authority, and therefore when speaking about Greenbelt Land and Development. Obviously here at the District Council, we have to be much more careful about how we discuss such matters. So I have worded this in a very certain way. Some members may wish I've gone further on this, but having taken soundings widely, this is, I think, the punchiest motion this council can actually pass tonight. So I'm sure you've all read it, but I'll just briefly go through some of the details. I do not intend to speak for too long. In Bishop Stortford, we have seen recently 2 examples of land which is listed as Greenbelt land being bought by what I charitably call a land bank, which has purchased green land, green open space, space used by the local community, and it has parcelled it up into small plots, roughly the size of a house or two, to sell off to individuals at far, far, far above the rate of amenity land. It's being sold at closer to residential prices. But as has been seen, say for instance in the case of the Meads land at Rye Street, no planning applications have been forthcoming. Why? Obviously I can't comment on that, but I would perhaps speculate about the utter impossibility in some of these cases of gaining planning permission on floodplain greenbelt land. However, this is causing very, very significant concern for local residents, and the sale, the parcelling up of greenbelt land into tiny little plots is a scourge upon our communities. This isn't just Bishop Stortford. We've seen similar examples in Much Haddam, Gruffing, Chewin, and it only takes a very, very, very short amount of Googling on the internet to find out cases across Gloucestershire, Bedfordshire, you name it, just about every county in England has these. Action is needed. The public want to see our greenbelt land protected, and so do I. So in this motion, I have I've suggested that this council resolves to ask the leader to write to the Secretary of State to express the town council's frustration at greenbelt land being sold in this way, to ask Secretary of State to consider new legislation and new regulations to tighten up the sale of greenbelt land, and to ask the Secretary of State to make sure there are strict rules, and this is crucial, about the information that is available to prospective sellers. Frequently, these plots of land are sold at auction. Often, repeatedly, they go up for auction, and the information on occasion sometimes leaves a little bit to be desired, and it doesn't always state it is greenbelt land and protected. So I commend this resolution to you, and I'd again just stress that it's been very carefully written so we do not prejudice ourselves at future planning application stages, and this discusses the sale of land and the sale of land only. I believe Councillor Wiley is going to second.
Happy to second, Chairman. Reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Can I have Councillor Bell, please?
Sorry, I just want to say I do support this motion. I think it's really important that we protect our greenbelt land and open spaces in our community from being developed. I just wanted to ask on page 913, the first inset bullet point under this council resolves states that we're expressing the town council's frustration that greenbelt land is being sold in small parcels. Should that not be district council?
I'll accept that as a very friendly amendment if that's possible, Councillor Bell. I would change that to district council. As I said, this was based upon the town council's motion. So thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, thank you. I realised that was probably just a foresight from the carrying over from town council. Thanks.
Could that amendment be seconded, please? Yeah, Councillor Curtis. Thank you. So that's quite a minor amendment, but that's been proposed in second. We need to vote on that amendment. Can we have all those in favour of that amendment, please? Yes, on the amendment, yeah. I know it's a very minor amendment, but we need to vote on it. Thank you. Is there anybody against and any abstentions? No, thank you. Councillor Goldspink.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, the whole of the Liberal Democrat group supports this motion. Yes, very, very firmly, very strongly. We do think it is very important to protect our green open spaces. These may not be very big, but they are very important to the people who live in our towns. And they provide, yes, a little bit of breathing space, a little bit of leisure space, and they are really, really valuable. So we do want to protect them very, 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 very strongly. Yes, so all I can say is we do support this. We think possibly the motion could be strengthened, and we do have two members who would like to propose some amendments, which we believe will strengthen this motion. Thank you. I defer to my colleagues for that. Thank you.
We need a proposer and a seconder for that amendment. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, I'd like to propose an amendment, please, Chair.
Can you tell us what that amendment is?
Yeah, first I do apologise for the lateness of this. Wasn't a deliberate ploy. If I could explain that it starts the motion on Greenbelt land. This council notes at the end of those bullet points. I would propose adding the following bullet points. Council expresses regret at the amount of former Greenbelt land that has been built on or is due to be built on throughout the district as a result of the plans developed in the local plan of 2018. Council deplores the fact that the national government forced every local planning authority to construct a fixed amount of housing, meaning building on Greenbelt was inevitable.
Councillor Buckmaster.
Yeah, I think it's going beyond the proposition here. So I would say that while it may be important to the member and other members, it's probably not relevant to this particular discussion.
I think we'll have to vote on that.
Could I just explain why I believe it's relevant? If we're purporting here to defend the green belt, we do need to acknowledge if the green belt has been already parcelled off and is already planned to be parcelled off to within our own auspices and our own responsibilities. I don't believe one can be talked about without the other. It's certainly East Herts issue to talk about.
Okay, thank you. I think the amendment is going to go up on the screen in a minute. Yeah, the amendment's going to go up on the screen. I need a seconder for that amendment, please. Councillor Townsend.
Yes, I'd be keen to second that. Thank you.
Also, could I be allowed to finish the proposed amendment and then we can decide if it's relevant or not? That'd be fair.
Please.
Thank you. Okay, so the second bullet point was council deplores the fact that the national government forced every local planning authority to construct a fixed amount of housing, meaning building on a green belt was inevitable. It is accepted that siting developments in Bishop Stortford North has caused intolerable strain on the infrastructure in the town, whilst the prospect of a distribution centre in Bishop Stortford South represents an even greater difficulty. It is regrettable that developments have been and will be built on the former Greenbelt land, and it is admitted that the consequent loss of green spaces is not in accord with residents' needs or wishes. This council will do all it can to alleviate the inevitable strain on infrastructure that the development of Gilston will bring, and this council accepts errors were made in the local plan and that less developments should have been sited around the same pieces of infrastructure, specifically the north-south corridor from Bishop Stortford, southwards towards Harlow, and more brownfield sites should have been sought if at all possible.
Thank you. That amendment has been seconded. Is there any debate on that amendment, please?
There's quite a lot in there, and I would actually like to see it written down so I could absorb what's actually in there to understand the implication.
I think we were hopeful of getting it up on the screen, but as you can see, we're having a few issues with that. So I think Katie is going to just email it to you. Okay, we can try and fix the screen if you bear with us, but otherwise we could email it to you if you've got a laptop.
Sorry, we're going to try and get up on the screen so you can see it.
There was a proposed, and Councillor Snowden, a proposed short break before the next motion, as you're aware. Would now be a good time to take that?
I think Councillor Wilson was going to propose a brief adjournment.
I was just going to ask about give them time to sort the computer out.
Yeah, happy to propose an adjournment for both those considerations for the next item and for this item now, as people haven't been able to see the amendment. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I mean, if you've got laptops, you should be able to see the amendment. It's just come up.
Mr. Chairman, can I second that request for a 10-minute adjournment? Thank you. We need,
Okay, we've had a proposal and a second. We need to vote on that for an adjournment, although you should have, if you've got a laptop here, you should be able to see it. It's come straight up. So this is for a 10-minute adjournment.
yeah.
Yeah, we had a proposed for a 10-minute adjournment, and we've had it seconded, so we need to have it voted on. All those in favour of a 10-minute adjournment? Thank you. I think that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry, we've had a proposer and we've had a seconder. I just need to ask James whether this can be allowed.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just going back. There was a point of order, I believe, from Councillor Buckmaster as to whether the amendment is allowed, and in which case I'm called in to sort of determine that. The Constitution does say at paragraph 33.22.6 that an amendment to a motion can be allowed as long as the effect is to not negate the motion or otherwise substantially rewrite the motion. Now, I've sought clarification on what the purpose of the original motion was from the original proposer, Councillor Snowden, and it was very specifically about Greenbelt land and about it being sold off in parcels in the way that was described in the original motion. From what I can see in the amendment, we are drifting more into Hallow and Gilston Garden Town. We're talking about the local plan, talking about planning policy. I feel it is drifting quite far away from the purpose of the original motion, which was very purposely narrow and very focusing, quite laser focused on one particular issue, which is the sale of Greenbelt land in parcels, not going into planning policy, not going into the local plan and other such topics. I would therefore determine that under section 3.22.6 of the Constitution, I'm afraid that the amendment as suggested would negate or otherwise substantially rewrite the motion, and I therefore would not be comfortable in allowing that to be put to a vote, and therefore it shouldn't go to a vote.
Thank you very much, James, for this clarification. So we have actually had a very slight amendment, which was district council instead of town council. I've still got a couple of people who wants to ask questions. The first one is Councillor Crofton. Do you still want to ask a question?
Where am I? Who am I? Right, we're talking about the motion that Councillor Snowden has put forward, and I would like to just support that because somebody's mentioned already that Tywin was a site where the green belt has been sold off in strips, and the local councillor Hazy is probably well aware of that. I have experience with it in another capacity, but also there's Aston as well, and that's been in little strips, tiny little strips. They're too small to build houses on, but they're little conurbations being built up there with garden sheds and dog walking, training, and all sorts of little things that need to be addressed. And then Boxwood Aston, that is. There's some people there that have sold off plots in Boxwood that has no chance of planning, but they're being sold as development sites corruptly and completely erroneously. It's an ancient woodland, historic importance, and it's just absolutely wrong. So Councillor Snowden is absolutely right, but how we must write to try and protect this exercise, but how can you stop people selling off bits of land? That's the tricky thing, and I suppose it's down to district councils to be a very, very strong in their planning and their control of unauthorized use of the land. I can't see how any government could introduce a law to stop people selling a strip of land. It's done all the time for people's gardens, to extend their gardens. It's done for all sorts of reasons. So it's very tricky, but I do support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Crofton. Councillor Stowe, did you have a question?
I just wanted to talk about a real situation, putting a bit of meat on the bone what Councillor Crofton just touched on in Aston. We have a field, large field there, where the actual local parish councillor called it plotlands now. And sheds, there's polytunnels, and there's even one person living in a caravan full time. Our enforcement team are aware of this. They are taking it very seriously and looking into it. But these plots of land are being sold by the agents, telling people that all they need to do is put a shed on their plot. And in about 2 or 3 years, they can actually get planning permission to build a house. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I mean, the one that Councillor Crofton mentioned at Boxwood, we had an Article 4 on that, which I think Helen helped sort out. I remember a while ago, and also the one at Welling in Welling Village, that had an Article 4 put on it as well. But these things, it's not what they could do. They can't even put a fence up, basically. But the trouble is, it's the policing of these things. And without the ability to police these things properly, nothing will change, because it's all about people making a bob or two, isn't it, really? And that's what it comes down to. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stowe. Councillor McAndrew.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Crofton there that in Bishop Stortford as well, there's lots of pockets of land that hasn't been utilised, and when they all sort of come together, you know, there's houses that can be built there that shouldn't be built, and myself and sort of Councillor Wiley and Councillor Hollybourne are sort of involved in quite a few of these, and I agree with the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Boylan, please.
I too would like to express my support for this motion. One of the other areas that were mentioned in the motion was Braffing, and clearly what is being referred to there is a large field that it must be 20 years ago now was sold by a farmer who was retiring, and that field has been divided into about 60 housing plots, and I've seen the evidence on the land registry. It is 60 housing plots, and there are separate owners for virtually all of them, and that the land registry layout even shows access roads built into that plan. As a result of that, because there is so many different owners, and many of those are overseas owners, they're not even local, there is no ownership of that field, and therefore it doesn't get maintained as farmland ought to be. The other thing that I will share with you is that in 2012, I led a piece of research into the existence of chancel repair liability in Braffing Parish before the legislation changed in 2013, which meant that you had to register an interest in that plot of land before, I think it was October 2013, for chancel repair liability to be legal. We discovered that the south side of that field did have a liability for chancel repair. So at least half of those housing plots now have liability for chancel repair. So the chances of houses ever being built on there and people taking on that liability is even more slim than it was before. So there are lots of complications, and we're just left with a field that is not owned, not managed, and I wouldn't want to see that happening across the whole district. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boylan. Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Chair. Again, like other councillors, I agree with the substance of this motion. I just have a quick question towards Councillor Snowden. I'm never really interested in what motions state that this council notes or this council believes. For me, the only thing that's important is what this council resolves to do. Or at least that's the primary thing that's important. And on the items that are listed for things that we're resolving to do if we pass this motion, it's about there's a section about toughening up the rules on the sale of greenbelt land, of asking the Minister, the Secretary of State to toughen up the rules on this or to consider proposals. And like Councillor Crofton, I think that what's being done is outrageous, that you've got this information asymmetry between the seller and the buyer, and the seller will sort of try and convince the buyer that the land is something that is not and can be developed. And I think that the buyer is being screwed over, frankly, and that needs to be toughened up, the rules there. But what do you mean by toughening up the rules or strengthening the rules on the sale of greenbelt land? Because I want people to still be able to sell the land. I just don't want them to claim that it's for development purposes or can be used for development purposes. So is there any way we can slightly amend that or just have some clarification on that, please?
May I,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Is there anybody else that wants to comment on Any of these? To be honest, I want to comment because you did mention Much Haddon, which is my ward. I want to say that the selling agents very often give false information. They deliberately, as you said, they deliberately pass them up into house-size plots, and they don't warn people trying to buy them that you can't get a house on there. There's deliberately misinformation, I believe. Councillor Crystal.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like most of us here, I'm sure agree with the essence of the motion. I think it is abhorrent seeing these plots cut up. The problem I have with this motion is what's a small plot. I think that the challenge is that, of course, whatever we say is a small plot, there'll always be a wiggle room. Someone will make it slightly bigger, and then it won't qualify as a small plot. I think unless you make the statement that we're perhaps against selling all greenbelt land for development, but particularly as small plots, that would kind of, to me, make sense. But as just small plots, it's kind of hard to see how it would be meaningful.
Okay. Are there any more comments or questions? If not, I'm going to go back to Councillor Snowden, who was the mover of the original motion, to have the right reply.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. They are really good points about how and small plots. So I've already myself contacted the Minister of State and been in communication with his planning policy advisor. The concept of small plots is a well-known one to the ministry. They are aware of this ongoing problem across the country, and it is, to say small plots, I fully understand, Councillor Crystal, it sounds amorphous, but it does cover a sort of a multitude of sins in a certain area. So it is a term that is known to government. And also to Councillor Curtis, what can you do? I think a lot of this, as you will see what I wrote, new legislations and or regulations to tighten up the rules about selling greenbelt land. I do not say to prohibit it or anything like that. It's the rules of it. And as has been mentioned by many other members, it's about the advertising of it. It's about that information asymmetry you mentioned yourself. And it's about the way in which it's portrayed. And also, it is very clear to me that we have district plans. We have places where development is allowed and development isn't. And if it is greenbelt land where there is a presumption against the sale, we may even want to look at whether there are rules about splitting up existing holdings of land. I did consider mentioning some of this in here, but alas, I'm not a parliamentary draftsman. There are people far better qualified to try and interpret the current planning law, and interpret the law and work out exactly how this can be done. One of the reasons that there hasn't been legislative activity is, as you rightly say yourself, Councillor Curtis, it is not an easy situation. And I know members who've spoken quite strongly about problems in their own patch will know it is a big problem that is hard to solve. But just because a problem isn't hard to solve doesn't mean we shouldn't have a go. But the exactitudes of what to do, that is for the parliamentary draftsman. And this is a motion about policy, not about legislative implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Snowden. So the motion is set out on pages 912 and 913 of the agenda pack with a very slight amendment. And the amendment is that it should say district council instead of town council. So could I have a show of hands for all those in favour of this motion, please? Thank you. Anybody against? And any abstentions? No, I think that's carried unanimously. That is carried. Thank you very much. Right, we're going to go on to the second motion now, which is 13B, which is the cost of living crisis and emergency. And I'm going to go to Councillor Miney Goldspink to present that motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'm sure we're all aware that many people are struggling at the moment. There is a real cost of living crisis and emergency. And many people in East Herts are struggling. Cost of fuel and energy have risen dramatically, as has the cost of food. Inflation is running in double figures, but wages are not keeping pace. Many families are struggling to pay their bills, and some are facing the terrible choice of having to decide whether to buy food or to pay to heat their homes. The use of food banks has increased dramatically, and the Citizens Advice Service is helping more people than ever before. So I would like to propose this motion to you. I am now proposing revised wording, a completely different set of words. I hope that you have all now received copies of the revised wording. The sentiment in this new wording is exactly the same as it was in the original wording. And it does seek to indicate to the residents of East Herts that we as councillors are very, very concerned about their plight and their difficulties, and we would like to do everything we can to help them. So I commend the new wording to you. I hope that you have all been able to see it. And I therefore propose that this is a motion on the cost of living crisis and emergency. And I do have a seconder, and then I hope we can discuss it and then vote.
Thank you,
Chair.
Councillor Goldspin. Can I have a seconder for that motion, please? Yes. Councillor Dumont. Do you wish to speak now, or do you wish? Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on this motion? Yes, Councillor Snowden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to thank Councillors Goldspink and Dumont for conversations about this motion, also Councillor Wilson as well. I thought they were very fruitful. I think the key thing for me is I'm very much in favour of the motion as amended by Councillor Goldspink, that you will now all have a separate printout in front of you. One of the issues that worries me the most, and it's very much reflected in this amended motion, is that not all of the people who are struggling are people who are on benefits or universal credits. There are people who are retired, who may have health problems, the disabled, who are facing rising heating bills, and they do need all of the support that this country can offer them. And also, and I think another key group that often gets overlooked are those who are in work but are on low wages. We've seen indications from the government that the minimum wage may be raised somewhat substantially. I think we also need to make sure we get full and significant help for those who are, might have young children, disabled relatives, and they're working at or close to the minimum wage as well. I think that is absolutely crucial. And as a nation, as a society, we do have a duty to help all of those who we can within our financial means. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Snowden. Councillor Hazy, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I also welcome the rewording of this amendment, and I'm very happy to support it. I think it's very important that as a district council, we show unity in this area, because we are here for the quality of life of our residents, and that quality of life is being eroded for many of them. Whatever we can do as a district council, a county council, and our third sector, we should encourage that to happen. I'm very happy to write necessary letters, and I would hope that perhaps what we can do is I look to the leaders of the other parties, opposition parties, so that we can send a letter from all of us signed by all the leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Redfern.
Yes, I've seen the rewording. I'm rather disappointed that it's been watered down rather a lot. The bit about the immediately restore the universal credit supplement of £20, I would like to see included in back into it, and be on there as well. The rewording is just, it's giving a lot of praise for things that have been done which haven't been enough, and not enough strength to what we should be asking for, I feel. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add to the comments of other members, we must also remember the people that are in work are in relatively high wages, it would seem, but the rents and mortgages are so high, especially in this district, that they are struggling. So when you think about those people, as well as those, I know Councillor Snowden referred to people in work, but people in work at higher than the level of that would usually attract benefits. And secondly, I would agree with Councillor Redfern that I do believe that it's very important that universal credit is increased. Again, we also have to think that even if someone on universal credit manages to get a wage increase, which is often what some people encourage them to do, then the level of benefit is often actually then decreased. So they actually don't effectively get a wage rise. So we do need to make sure that the universal benefit goes up.
Thank you. Councillor Buckmaster.
Thanks, Chairman. I get the sense from members who've spoken so far, and I'm sure around the chamber, that we all agree that more can be done. We should be working all together across the political spectrum, as we should be doing across all 10 districts and boroughs in the county council. There were some things that have already been in place, I think has been referred to, and I would refer members to the Here For You campaign, which is a booklet that's being delivered to residents. It started last month, and there's a link to it, and I'll share that with all members. I think it's really important that we get all of that advice over to residents as far and wide as we can. I think the important thing around being too specific in the motion is that we really do need to see what the whole package is in the autumn statement. And then I would then take up the leaders' point around us all getting together and then coming up with a position where we write collectively and say how we feel and what our expectations are. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Kay, please.
Yeah, I'm support what Councillor Buckmaster said, and also what Councillor Wilson said, in the sort of group of people that we sometimes call just about managing. And it is, it can be a huge struggle in terms of universal credit. I mean, I've got sympathy with that. I personally think it shouldn't have been cut after COVID, but we're in a slightly different situation now, because the speculation has been that it's possible that the people on universal credit, other benefits and pensioners will get the full 10.1% or whatever it is, which might end up more than the £20 that was withdrawn. But I think we need to be clearer, and we won't be clearer until after tomorrow. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Kay. Councillor Simons, please.
Thank you, Chairman. As Vice Chairman and voucher holder for the Bishop Stortford Food Bank, I really like this recommendation. One thing I'd like to say, yes, it's gone up, the number of food bank parcels that we do give out, but we always make sure that there's not other problems that the family needs to address, or the single persons, or there's benefits that they could get. And I just want to pay tribute to our benefit department, because discretionary housing benefit can help when the rent goes up, and also council tax support. And not everybody is aware of that. And yes, they've done an excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Simons. Councillor Curtis.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with 98% of this motion in full. I think it's well worded. I think that we should be voting in favour of it tonight, and I will be voting in favour of it myself tonight. I just wanted to note, though, that it states here that the windfall tax is welcome. I think that I'm generally cautious of retrospective taxation, but I think it's fair in this case. I'm fine with that. I just wanted to put that on the record. And the other thing I wanted to put on the record is regarding the primary objective of the Chancellor's autumn statement tomorrow should be support for the most vulnerable in our communities. I think that it's crucial that this is done. I think it's possibly the most important single objective, but I also think that we need to be thinking beyond just this winter as well. And I'm looking forward to seeing the Chancellor outline how we're going to get out of some of the challenges that we face, economic challenges we face that have been sort of long-term structural ones. I hope that they're prioritised as well. So I think that in passing I hope that doesn't negate those points that I've made there. I don't think it does, but I just wanted to put that on the record in case in case anyone questions me on this in days, weeks, months, years to come.
Thank you. Are there any more questions or comments? Councillor Dumont. No, Councillor Dumont.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think it's clearly good to hear that across the chamber we can come together and support this because we are in a very difficult situation, not only as a country, but globally. We're coming out of the back of COVID. We are dealing with the war, the terrible war in Ukraine that has fueled inflation. But unfortunately, I can't sit here in this chamber without saying that Brexit and also the recent mini budget, and I was someone that had to remortgage myself about 5 days after it and paid quite a premium for that. And this Tory government we have, I'm hoping that tomorrow they can correct some of the mistakes that have been made over recent times and over Brexit. And hopefully we can start to get this dividend we're all promised, and this will help to pay some of the bills of our residents that are struggling.
Thank you, Councillor Dumont. The move of the original motion has the right reply. So Councillor Goldspink, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I would just like to thank all members across the chamber for their support and for voicing their support. And I do hope, yes, that we can work together and lobby the government to do much more to really help the most vulnerable people in East Herts district. So thank you all very much for your voices of support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goldspink. So members, the motion is not in the agenda packet. It is this motion that you've been given a hard copy of, and the public will be able to see this because it will be it'll be typed into the minutes. Okay, so I want to take you. Can I have a show of hands whether you're in favour of this motion, please? Thank you. Thank you. Is there any against and any abstentions? Thank you. That's unanimous. So that is carried. Thank you. Members, that concludes tonight's business. I declare the meeting closed at 9:20 p.m.